Joining us now is Senator Kevin Cramer, Republican senator from North Dakota. Senator, we appreciate you joining us once again here on Centerpoint.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, Senator, it was sort of a tense standoff, but on Tuesday we did hear some conciliatory remarks from the president. Of course, after months of no communication on the debt issue between the White House and Republicans, they're now talking on a daily basis. Is there hope, Senator, that these leaders will be able to set politics aside and come to some sort of deal?
You know, Joe, I have to say I'm 99% confident. I always leave 1% room for possible error, but I'm pretty confident that they'll come to some resolution because nobody really wants to default on the nation's debt. We have too many priorities to get done, and I think that the president's position of a clean debt ceiling with no conditions was impossible to sustain that, obviously, in a divided government. 7 out of the last 10 debt ceiling increases have included some sort of concessions and additional, policies attached to it. In a divided government, I just don't see any other way to do it. So I'm grateful that they're back at the negotiating table. One thing about debt and spending and big legislating in this town is it almost always requires a deadline or a cliff to get action, and we're coming close to the cliff, and I think that you'll see some action.
Well, you just mentioned in that answer a divided area. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy said yesterday that he sees no progress and that the president's delay in coming to the negotiating table is not a way to govern. So did you see any room for compromise in the last several days, the comments they made after that meeting?
Yeah, I think I'm encouraged by some of what you reported. While on the one hand, the president seemed to maintain his same position, on the other hand, he seemed to be encouraged and again talked about possibility of compromise. Look, everybody's got a posture, everybody's got a position, everybody's got to thump their chest a little bit in this to demonstrate to their side that they're fighting for the values of one side or the other. The difference here is that Kevin McCarthy and the House Republicans have actually passed a bill that raises the debt ceiling that has attached to it some really rather modest, in my view, certainly reasonable, policy attachments. Things like work requirements for people on welfare, able-bodied people on welfare. I think the vast majority of Americans, in fact, I think somewhere around 3/4 of Americans support a policy like that. Going back to 2022 levels of spending. Just imagine, Joe, from 2019 to 2022, our baseline spending went from $4.4 trillion to $6.2 trillion in that short time frame. Would it be so bad to go back a couple of years as the new, bottom line? I think a lot of conservatives would like to go back to 2019. And the House bill goes back to the 2022 number of $6.2 trillion. The president's asking for something like $6.8 trillion and growing debt and deficit with no end in sight. That and then, of course, some permitting reforms that will help generate more revenue for the government. So pretty reasonable, I think. And I think that's what gives Kevin McCarthy, the speaker, the moral high ground in these negotiations.
Senator, some economists are predicting economic catastrophe if something doesn't happen soon. Do you think politicians and your cohorts and colleagues, are you guys taking heed to this warning and putting the pressure on both Biden and McCarthy?
Well, we're putting a lot of pressure on the president because, again, the Republicans have actually passed a bill in the House of Representatives. So I don't really see where the ball's so much in their court as it is in the president's. It's up to him to come with some sort of a reasonable counteroffer, in my view. I don't think that we're going to get to the cliff and jump off of it. I really don't. I think there's a pretty strong commitment that won't happen. But if the president would come back with some reasonable alternative compromise, I think they could hash it out. And I think at that point, if there's some reasonable reforms, some recognition that there's some waste that can be cut, I think you'll see a strong bipartisan vote to raise the debt ceiling and to raise the ceiling so that we can borrow to pay off existing debt and continue to fund the government at current priorities. But we also have to take a hard look at what creates the debt in the first place, the deficit spending. What is driving up our debt, both on the mandatory and the discretionary side of the budget, while at the same time recognizing that we have multiple geopolitical challenges that we need to be prepared to defend against. So I'm confident they'll come up with something, maybe not something that every Republican will vote for or every Democrat will vote for, but something that recognizes that we have a divided government, we have a Republican majority in the House, Democratic president. They need to work out, the compromise, and nobody wants to see us lead to debt. But I also would remind viewers that if we do nothing, before we've done nothing or whatever it is we do, remember this: we have high inflation, we have high interest rates, we have a lot of regulations that are driving businesses away, we have high taxation and an appetite for more on the left. These things have already led to an economic crisis to the point where we only produced, our GDP last quarter was 1.1%, which means we very well may be going into a recession. So it's not like we've avoided economic crisis. One of the things that's driving up this crisis is our increasing debt and deficit spending. And so it's entirely reasonable for Republicans to demand that we do something on the spending side of this ledger. And markets and our economy will respond favorably to that.
Senator Kevin Cramer, we appreciate the insight. A lot of great numbers there, as you just mentioned, and we'll have you back on after this all gets settled. So for now, to be continued.
Look forward to the opportunity. Thank you.